Boa tarde, bom a todos. Eu gostaria de me apresentar, antes de mais nada. Meu nome é Kleber, eu sou representante do Instituto Parar para Relações Internacionais, também sou membro do Advisory Board da Fleet Latam, pelo Instituto Parar. Tenho 20 anos de mercado no setor de frotas, atualmente eu atuo na Lisiplan Brasil, sou o superintendente comercial da Lisiplan, e a gente está aqui para falar um pouquinho, de novo, de frotas, do setor de frotas, né? A gestão de frota, ela está passando por uma mudança muito forte nos últimos anos, né? Tanto aqui no Brasil como no mundo todo. Principalmente agora com a vinda dessa pandemia, da crise do Covid, os impactos para todos nós foi muito grande, mas além disso também nós sabemos do processo de inovação que o setor vem sofrendo, tanto o setor automotivo como para todo o segmento de frotas, de gestão de frota e tudo mais, da forma com que nós trabalhamos, né? E como é feito todos os anos, com grande frequência, a Global Fleet produziu recentemente a sua 5ª pesquisa para entender o funcionamento da gestão de frota no mundo todo. E para falar um pouquinho dessa pesquisa, nós convidamos o editor-chefe da Global Fleet, Steven Scholz, se eu falei corretamente, para compartilhar um pouquinho conosco parte dessa pesquisa e dar alguns insights para todos nós aqui do setor de frotas. Nós vamos fazer um bate-papo em inglês, vocês vão acompanhar as legendas. Então, é isso. Welcome, Steven. It's a pleasure to talk with you, and quite interesting the results of the survey. Congrats for that, okay?
Thank you.
And I have the first question for you, Steven. Can you share the main results of the survey with our colleagues and the insights that these surveys brought for the fleet managers?
Yes. First of all, thank you very much. Thank you, Kleber. Thank you also to Parar. It's a pleasure that I can be with you in these particular times. So, bom dia. I am responsible for Global Fleet, and with Global Fleet, we have for the 5th time, we have done a Global Fleet survey. It's a survey where we are examining the strategy and buying intentions of multinational companies across the globe, so also in Latin America, but also in the other continents. I am going to present some of the results of that Global Fleet Survey 2020. So if we look a little bit at the profiling of the survey, we had 113 multinational companies that participated, and they represented almost 900,000 passenger cars and 177,000 light commercial vehicles. Okay, and all companies together have in total 1.5 million employees. This means that this survey is really an important and a global survey, and so we are also happy that we can share some of the results. If we look a little bit at the results, then we see that those multinational companies, they have a vehicle fleet of, on average, 9,300 plus vehicles. So those are really large companies. You can imagine pharmaceutical companies, IT companies, food companies, and so on. And on average, they have more than 70,000 employees worldwide in the company. So really the biggest companies. We also see that they have a fleet that is truly global. And if we look a little bit at the fleet of those companies across the continents, then of course we see that Europe has the most passenger cars in the fleet. And that is quite logic, because in Europe we have since a long time, we have the best practice of fleet management, of car leasing, and also we have in Europe a trend that we are not only providing tool cars for executing a certain job, but we also give benefit cars. So if you have a certain degree in the company, instead of having extra salary, you get some compensation and benefits, and one of those important benefits are company cars, and that's the reason why Europe is first. But you see also on the screen that Latin America is important. On average, those multinational companies have more than 1,000 vehicles in Latin America, so those fleets are becoming really big, and so those people are also interested in Latin America as a continent. Now, why do companies want to go global in terms of fleet management? Well, the main reason is still cost savings, cost efficiency. And so if you go global, the first reason is, of course, that you can probably put together some kind of vehicles that you have across the continents. So you have a larger number of vehicles and you can benefit from economies of scale. Secondly and thirdly on the screen, you see that with 4.2 on 5, so it's a score on 5. You see cost savings by increased cost control. You can imagine if you centralize some of the decisions on a regional or international level, the control can be a little bit easier. And third, if you go international, then of course you can also consolidate some suppliers, some car manufacturers, some banks or rental companies that you are working with, and so you can benefit also from that. So cost is still important, and that you see also translated in the functions. So we see still in the fleet industry today that most of the fleet managers are related to fleet management or procurement. Although that we see more and more human resources stepping up, and that has probably to do because of the increased attention for mobility. Now, cost is important, and why is it important? Because most of the companies, 66%, and in Latin America, it's even more. It's even a little bit more than 70%. So 66% of the companies have a strict cost savings target each year in terms of fleet. So every year they need to realize cost savings compared to the year before. And on average, that saving is around 7%. For Latin America, so the multinational companies that have responded to our survey have mentioned that for Latin America, the cost saving that they need to realize year on year is even 10%, so it's higher. Now, if we look at what they are doing on a global level, on a regional level, and on a local level, this is also interesting, then we see that, first of all, they are going to look to their finance providers, and they are going to try to select already with what companies, leasing companies, renting companies, banks, they can work, and they advise also their local and regional stakeholders to follow the selection that is made on an international level. Everything that is related to CO2, sustainability, the ecological footprint is also something that we see with environment, health and safety targets, with corporate social responsibility, with the climate change and the awareness around it, that on an international level, those multinational companies are really sensitive for that, and they are steering it from a global international perspective. On a regional level, you see that then we deep dive into more of the safety targets. This is something that probably we will also discuss later, because for LATAM it's quite important. So safety is something that is not always done on a global level. This is more decided on a regional level. The same for car brands choice. So you can perhaps select the car manufacturers that you would like to work with on an international level, but the car brands that you are offering, that is more done on a regional level, because probably not all car brands are available in the same way across the different continents. And on a national level, there you come with the fuel supplier choice, because I don't even know if there are 2 or 3 fuel suppliers that have gas stations in each and every continent. Of course, rules that have to do with the car policy, driver behavior and so on are done on a local level, and then also the car eligibility. So the people within the company that can drive a company car, that can of course differ from country to country and from region to region. So this was a little bit what I would like to say in terms of the general statistics around the Global Fleet Survey. What is interesting further is that if we look a little bit at what those fleet managers think about their fleet size and the evolution, then most of them say that the fleet size will stay stable. So this is the orange line that you see on the screen. So most of them say that it's stable. What we see for Latin America is that almost 1 in 5 is saying that they will increase their vehicle fleet still this year. Now we have to see, of course, that due to the pandemic and COVID-19, if this is still the case, because the survey was done before the outbreak, or let's say just during the outbreak of the pandemic from February to May. So we need to see if these figures are still valuable, but normally we see that there are 1 in 5 companies, multinational companies, that say that in Latin America they are going to increase their vehicle fleet size. Now, if we look at the preferred financing method of those multinational companies having fleets in Latin America, then we see that 79%, and that is quite a lot, is or would like to work in full service or operational leasing. So long-term leasing, yes, with leasing providers, and that 19% of those multinational companies is in Latin America still buying their cars on their own account. Now, interesting is that we also asked, where do you want to change your finance or lease supplier? And there we see that Brazil is one of the top countries. So apparently in Brazil, multinational fleets are looking if they can find a new leasing supplier. So perhaps they are not so satisfied with the one that they are working with right now, or they would like to see if there is one that can perhaps better serve their needs. We also asked, where in Latin America, no, where on the globe you don't have found a leasing supplier. And the first country of all countries on the list was Argentina. So 11% of the multinational companies said that they would like to find a leasing supplier in Argentina. And so if there are leasing companies here at the Parar event and they would like to open up offices about leasing in Argentina, apparently there is a need for that, okay? And that is the first thing, the first part, let's say, Kleber, of the highlights of the Global Fleet Survey. But we see that there is an interest for Latin America of multinational fleets, so this is really great.
Yeah. Interesting figures. I think we are moving fast when we see the Brazilian market, the Latin American market. We are moving in a good mood, in a good position, and there are a lot of things to be done. The evolution is the evolution is big, including for the professionals. So when we move from all of these data, thinking on the professionals. Recently, we know that the Global Fleet, you realize the Fleet Latin Conference. And it's a very big event. And from this event, generally, you can bring a lot of insights for the professionals of the segment. What can you tell, and what are your suggestions for the professionals from the sector, from the fleet segment, to keep in mind for this moment and for the future? What we can look with attention to improve, to raise the capability of these professionals.
So, Kleber, indeed, we organized for the second time the Fleet Latam conference. Of course, this year in a virtual way, like you are also doing with your conference. We did it end of September, 2 days, and we had in total, we had more than 450 people that participated during the session. So that was really a success. And I can name a few key lessons that we saw. So on the first day, we zoomed in on safety, and we saw indeed that most of the people were really interested in the topic of safety. Safety is a priority. And we have seen during the conference that due to the pandemic, and even when we will come out of COVID into the new normal, that safety will be one of the top priorities also with fleet managers, with their employees. Yes, so the sanitization of the vehicles, everything that is related to being in contact with other people on the road, in the company, will stay high on the agenda. Now, the second thing that we saw was that telematics and connectivity make it possible to measure and to understand data from driver behavior and data from the car. And by using technology like telematics, we have seen that those fleet managers, that they can improve the efficiency, so they can improve also the productivity, the utilization of the vehicles, they can increase the safety, they can lower the fuel consumption. And so it's a win-win-win almost on every scale, let's say, within fleet management. So we have seen that there is also a need and more appetite to see how technology in the car can also elaborate benefits in fleet management for the company afterwards. Thirdly, we discussed the topic of electrification. And this is not so developed in Latin America as it is in Europe, but somehow there is an appetite from Latin American fleet managers and also the industry in seeing how this can be brought to a higher scale, a higher maturity. Of course, electrification is in first instance at the moment driven by legislation and taxation. Nevertheless, due to corporate social responsibility, due to the new employees that come into the workplace and are perhaps a little bit more sensitive for everything that is green, there is a future for electrification. And so it is useful for fleet managers in Latin America to start thinking about where can we implement electric vehicles, where can we change perhaps ICE vehicles with new powertrains, and how can I convince my management and my stakeholders about the benefits of electric vehicles. At the moment, those are in terms of price, list price, they are still more expensive than petrol cars or than diesel cars. But we see that if you look at the complete total cost of ownership, that they become more and more interesting. So it will be good also in Latin America to start thinking about that. And then finally, what we have seen is that Latin America is not the easiest continent in terms of fleet management, leasing. There are various countries, there are various best practices, cultural preferences, there is legislation and so on. And so the fourth lesson, let's say, is that it would be good to be open to listen to experts and to partner, to look for the best possible partners in the industry and to be open for new ideas. And that is not only with the suppliers, for sure they can help the fleet managers, but also fleet managers between themselves. So if there are platforms where they can ask questions, discuss some trends, explain what they do and what worked and what did not work, this is something that probably will also benefit in the longer run all of the fleet managers in Latin America. And so this is also what we are trying to do and what you are trying to do at Parar. And we saw at the Fleet Latam conference that we organized together with Geotab that this is really a need also in Latin America.
That's it. That's it. Quite interesting. Unfortunately, we are running out of our time. I think we could keep talking another 1 hour because it's quite rich, the discussion. We covered here about the security. You know that the Institute Parar is quite worried on the driver safety. For a long, since the beginning, we talk about driver safety and so on. Unfortunately, Brazil is in the top 5 of the worst traffic condition. So brought a lot of dangers for the drivers, a lot of costs for the clients. And you mentioned that in the survey, costs is still an important factor on the decision about cars, but we also have to think about security and about the driver and so on. At the end of the day, if you manage well the driver condition, we think on safety, we reduce costs, and I think this is quite clear. You also mentioned about the new technologies, electrical vehicles. We have in Brazil the hybrid one. That's also a good indication, and telematics and so on. To finalize, if you can, Steven, talk a little bit this equation between cost savings, driver behavior, technologies, electrical vehicles. What's the main mindset for the companies? You mentioned something important for the companies to share their ideas with the suppliers, because maybe we can find the best practice. Yes. And the exercise and the information you are bringing is quite important to be shared with the suppliers, with the companies. So if you have a last comment, yes, to finalize our talk, and what can you share with us, please?
Okay, so there is good news. So of course, cost savings, cost efficiency is still top on the agenda. But what we are seeing, for example, here, is that when multinational fleets look to what car brands they would like to select for the company, that next to pricing with 4.4, safety technology is already in the second place with 4.2. So even when selecting cars, multinational companies are more and more looking at how safe is the car for my employees. When we talk about the telematics, then we see that at the moment, 22% says that they have already implemented telematics. So there is still a long way to go, but there is a willingness. You see on the chart that within 12 months, another 12% is going to implement telematics, and within 24 months, almost another 30%. So you see that at that moment, we will already, so in 2 years' time, already 60% and more has implemented telematics technology in the cars to streamline via connectivity, fleet efficiency. And finally, in terms of green fleet, what we are seeing is that, of course, there is a high attention from the largest companies, as I explained, to new powertrains. And they are, of course, committed to CO2 reduction, and they would like to increase the number of electric vehicles, hybrid vehicles, plug-in hybrid vehicles in the upcoming years. So 83% are saying that they are planning to increase the number of alternative powertrains in their fleet. And this also in Latin America, there is this willingness to go forward with green vehicles where it is possible. And this demonstrates that the topics of safety, connectivity and electrification are on the agenda, but what we have seen is that from those topics at the moment, safety is the most important.
That's quite nice. I think it's, at the end you bring cost savings, efficiency, knowledge, and so on. So I think we are in the right way. A lot of to be improved, a lot of to learn, a lot of to develop, but with this partnership, with the support of Global Fleet, I can see that the market can improve it, just obtain advantage on this. Stephen, thanks a lot for your participation, and it's a pleasure to be here, and until the next time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kleber. Thank you to Parag, and I wish you a great conference, and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Yeah, see you. Keep safe. Bye-bye.